Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host for today, Aaron Dykes. It is Wednesday, September 26th, 2012.
Tonight on the INFOWARS Nightly News, EPA sued over illegal experimentation on human subjects. David Ortiz sits down with Tom Woods to discuss NDAA and more. The October INFOWARS magazine discusses the technocracy takeover. And INFOWARS reporters meet camera-shy NSA agents. All that and more coming up on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
Tonight, in a shocking but true speech segment, Beating the Drums Towards War, we find a member of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy essentially calling for the U.S. to launch a provocation to start a war with Iran. This is a pro-Israeli lobby and a think tank represented annually at Bilderberg. As unbelievable as this is, it is very much par for the course. It is Director of Research for YNAB, Patrick Clausen, listed a raft of historical examples where there were staged or exploited attacks used to take us to war. Among them was the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the USS Maine, the sinking of the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, and Fort Sumter from the Civil War, all staged in their own way. And he essentially dubbed this pattern as the traditional way in which America goes to war. He further told his hawkish audience, quote, "We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians, and we could get nastier about it," and essentially called for all this to be escalated. He referred to Iran submarines going down and more. It's crazy. It's incredible. It is totally us going hot for war. Let's play some of those clips now and analyze them.
One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. It's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using,
and of course you see this audience laughing through what many analysts expect could be an extremely devastating war that they say could drag us into a full-blown World War III. Now, Clausen's semi-nude terroristic threats are on the heels of his experience at other terroristic organizations known as the IMF and the World Bank. So what do you expect? But at the same time, we've discussed at length at INFOWARS how an October surprise is in the cards. It's being considered. It's in the poker hand. It's being looked at again and again as an ace card, knowing that if it's played right, if the game is played properly, it could get them exactly what they want. This is all tied in with statements from former Senator Gary Hart, who circa 2007 wrote a, quote, mock letter to Iran warning them about Americans' history of using false flags to start wars. It's on the heels of scores of Obama advisors calling for new Oklahoma cities, for new 9/11 attacks, all to get Obama reelected or to get America engaged in another terrible war adventure that many of the people in Washington and other parts of the power play of the Anglo-American sector would like to see put in place. So very disgusting, and unfortunately our population is all too likely to just repeat mantras like support our troops and never really think about how or why we got to war, even though you nakedly have people calling for a provocation to start a war on phony pretexts. It's disgusting, but it's happening. There's that clip. In related news, you have Iranian press TV journalist Maya Nasser killed, apparently assassinated by the U.S.-backed Free Syrian Army rebels, just as he was reporting on twin explosions near the Syrian capital, bombs that were so big and underreported that they really don't seem like they could have been done just by random rebels running around with automatic rifles. And this same journalist has been critiquing Israel's role in pushing for airstrikes against Syria. He's been critical of the West in many ways. Now he's dead. Very suspicious. That will surely come out, or maybe it'll be forgotten. Who knows? In health news, there's other shockwaves coming from the recent GMO study linking rats to cancer after eating GM corn. Russia is now saying it will suspend the import and use of American GM corn following that study, which brought up causes of breast cancer, liver, kidney damage, and of course it's also been linked to infertility. All the experts just laugh about it and say we need that depopulation. They are saying this could trigger a diplomatic and commercial row with the U.S. and the West. Well, good. If the illegitimate United States of Monsanto falls, that's really in everyone's advantage. They've hijacked several of the past administrations, Bush and Quayle, openly pushing for Monsanto to be cleared on those regulations. It came out also today that Romney, while at Bain Capital, helped polish Monsanto's image and launch their era of biotechnology. Obama is completely bought out and has bowed to GMO interests. You've got Michael Taylor still currently at the head of food safety at the FDA, and they won't label this food. So good if these countries stop importing it. Russia's not the only country. It's probably just the most flagrant example. Canada has said they're now going to investigate this GM corn, do a study on it. France has said that. The European Food Safety Authority has said they're going to look into it. And other countries probably will and should. We should get this stuff off the market. It's known to be dangerous, but they're shoving it down our throats anyway, literally. Meanwhile, a new story on the history of human experimentation going on in the modern day hasn't even stopped yet. The EPA now being sued over basically shoving diesel fumes down people's throats to do a study on the dangerousness of emissions from cars. It is specifically a particle matter known as PM 2.5 that the EPA has already considered deadly. In fact, Lisa Jackson, head of the EPA, testified in Congress that this particulate matter causes premature death and blames it for 1 in 4 U.S. deaths, attributing it to PM 2.5. And yet the agency she heads is doing experiments on elderly people who are already ill and other human test subjects who were not properly informed about what was being put into their bodies, not properly informed about the dangers, and so they're testing on humans. Seems crazy, seems unbelievable, but it's really going on. What do you expect? Lisa Jackson cut her teeth and rose to power as the chief of staff for John Corzine, so, you know. But anyway, Alex had on the show today the director of the American Tradition Institute Environmental Law Center, who have initiated this lawsuit. David W. Schneier was on the program to discuss this new terrifying example at length. He's directing that lawsuit, or at least advising on it, and that will come out in future reports, I'm sure, as it develops, but really bombshell information. And you've got to put this in perspective with the official disclosures that the U.S. has tested on human subjects in this country hundreds and hundreds of times. It's openly sprayed chemicals, pollutants, all kinds of things on entire cities. It's taken members of the military, subjected them to the test. Many people died, took other vulnerable populations, whether it's religious minorities or ethnic minorities, subjected them to tests. The U.S. does this. We investigated ourselves at the congressional level and found hundreds and hundreds of endless, horrible examples of this stuff. So we shouldn't be surprised, and we should shine a light on this new case and try to hold them accountable, as they were trying to apparently prove how horrible cars are and get us out of our cars. Well, it's much worse if you commit suicide with it. Now, in the next segment, we take the extremely poignant and serious analysis, social commentary, really, from Jeff Foxworthy about American culture, and we kind of turn it on ourselves. How do you know if you are a conspiracy theorist? Well, tonight, we can tell you that you might be a conspiracy theorist if you're capable of critical thinking, if you distrust the mainstream media, if you think about WTC Building 7, if you think drones in America might not be for Al-Qaeda, if you think you have a right to protest, if you think there's essentially no important difference between Republicans and Democrats, if you think the Constitution itself is not a terrorist act, if you think the right to bear arms is not just for hunting, if you don't want a bunch of tyrannical thugs overriding you. If you think rich and powerful, connected people should be held to the rule of law and go to jail if they commit crimes, i.e. JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, if you are aware just of the fact that Homeland Security bought 1.2 billion rounds of ammunition and are kind of concerned about it, if you think about the Federal Reserve or about Monsanto's GMO corn or a host of other issues, re-education camps, if you think at all, if you think at all, you just might be a conspiracy theorist. That's a public service announcement here at INFOWARS.com. We just want to try to realize the craziness we're involved in here today. And how dare you if you think you might be a terrorist too. I'm sure that's the next segment. Meanwhile, bit of media analysis. Steve Watson found this in the UK while analyzing some magazines. Geoengineering and New World Order pushed on the sleeping sheeple. Of course, their propaganda, their symbolism is everywhere. It's the kind of terms they say we're crazy and conspiracy theorists for if we bring them up and talk about them, and yet they're put on the front pages of magazines and stores all across the globe. And that's what they want to do. They want to populate our minds with the terms they define in their senses, but take away from those terms and turn them on their head if we try to point out what's really going on. Just a small example of the bigger picture there.
Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about 1.5 years ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of Youngevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals. But the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com, sign up as a distributor, and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com.